In the Marvel Universe, there are your run-of-the-mill supervillains, and then there are these guys. Career criminals, hardened on the streets, making names for themselves, leading some of the most notorious gangs on Earth. I'm Adam Andrews, and these are the top 10 Marvel criminals who can't be stopped. Coming in at number 10 is Kingpin. How else can you start off a list like this? As the Kingpin of crime, Wilson Fisk has his massive fingers pulling the strings of nearly all organized crime families who are on the east coast of America, except for, of course, the Masque. The first thing you notice about Kingpin is how absolutely massive the man is, but don't get it twisted, he is not in poor shape. That size is a direct indication of how absolutely physically strong and durable Wilson Fisk is. His strength and durability don't often get put on display though, and that's simply because Wilson Fisk's real power is the multiple different criminal organizations under his thumb, which gain him both control, but also a lot of money. He is incredibly intelligent and almost never puts himself where he can shoulder the blame for the crimes he organizes. He has gone up against everyone, most notably Spider-Man, Daredevil, and the Punisher, and even if he does find himself in the slammer, he has enough money and control that he can walk out of there as easily as he walked in. Number 9, Hammerhead. During his ridiculously problematic childhood, the boy known only as Joseph and his family escaped the Soviet Union and fled to Italy with the aid of a man known as the General. Growing up, Joseph's papa was a very destructive person, using a hammer to punish little Joseph for speaking Italian in their Russian household, leaving him with visible scars. In school, Joseph concealed his Russian origins, claiming to be fully Italian, but was exposed by a bully named Rico, who also stole his hat, revealing his scars, and that's mean. This bullying is ultimately what led Joseph to join the Masque crime family, convincing them that he was Italian to gain acceptance and eventually becoming an enforcer and controlling his own little part of the family itself. After a brawl left his head shattered, he was saved by Jonas Harrow, who replaced his damaged skull with a steel one. Upon awakening, he fixated on a 1920s movie poster adopting the persona of Hammerhead with a penchant for 1920s attire, weaponry, speech, and criminal behavior. He has since received more and more modifications to his body, including his entire upper skeleton being replaced by an adamantium one. Damn. Number 8, the Hood. The Hood, real name Parker Robbins, started as a lowly small-time crook in New York City, but his life took a very drastic turn when he and his cousin John tried to rob a warehouse where a mystical seance had just taken place. Here, he found a cloak-wearing demon that he defeated. Now, stealing the cloak and the boots that the demon was wearing for himself, he was granted immense powers. And that's because these two artifacts originated from the astronomically powerful ruler of the Dark Dimension, Dormammu. With his newfound abilities, including invisibility, air walking, electricity projection, resurrection, and the ability to see through illusions, and the power to summon and be possessed by both demons and Dormammu himself, the Hood became a formidable figure in the criminal underworld, even if he really had no idea how to use the power that he was given properly. He assembled his own gang and embarked on a mission to establish himself as a major player in the Marvel Universe by working for and alongside other crime bosses and supervillains, but he never really was in charge himself. Number 7, Zheng Zu. Zheng Zu and his younger brother Shang Yi were formidable sorcerers in 18th century China. Together with their 5 skilled buddies known as the Deadly Warriors, they founded the 5 Weapon Society with the actually pretty noble goal of safeguarding China. Utilizing longevity spells, the Sorcerer Brothers extended their lifespan significantly, which unfortunately left their original disciples weakened and left themselves severely elderly as time passed on. Unfortunately, tragedy struck when the society faced a massive defeat at the hands of Dormammu and his mindless ones, and Shang Yi sustained some incredibly mortal wounds. In a desperate bid to save his brother, Zheng Zu attempted a spell that would restore Zhang Yi's youth at the cost of his own life. However, Yi selfishly reversed the spell, sacrificing himself to rejuvenate Zu. Left to lead the society alone, Zheng Zu's thirst for power and ruthlessness grew exponentially, eventually transforming the organization into a criminal empire of huge power. Zheng Zu proved to be a formidable and ruthless adversary for centuries, and that's even before he had his son, Shang-Chi, enter the picture. Number 6, Green Goblin. The Green Goblin doesn't often come to mind when thinking of crime lords. The Goblin persona seems to be more commonly associated with being a superpowered, completely insane villain fighting with Spider-Man. While the Green Goblin is actually a crime lord though, it's more often Norman Osborn himself that we associate as the criminal mastermind here. And as a criminal mastermind with vast amounts of money and resources thanks to his legitimate business, Osborn has been able to become the most powerful man on the planet. He was able to completely destroy S.H.I.E.L.D., taking control of it and creating Hammer, creating his own team of evil Avengers and even his own evil Illuminati, and having control over pretty much the entire world. He was a crime lord the whole time, and he managed to do it while being backed by the government. Number 5, Tombstone. Much like Hammerhead, Lonnie Thompson Lincoln grew up facing quite a bit of cruelty, but this wasn't because of his accent or his scars. For Lonnie, he was the only African-American albino man in his neighborhood, which saw him bullied to no end. Unfortunately though, for everyone else, Lonnie managed to become one of the most physically imposing people around, and he used that to strike fear into everyone, going from the bullied to the bullier, and then eventually to being an enforcer and hitman for the Maggia. Being extremely pale, he gained a reputation for taking on the appearance of a vampire to help more with his intimidation, even filing his own teeth so as to make them sharp, and then later being exposed to chemicals which gave him actual super strength. He continues to influence everyday people living in New York, facing heroes like Spider-Man and Daredevil, and occasionally the Punisher too. Number 4, Viper. Taken in off the streets by Hydra itself, Ophelia Sarkisian, who would later become the Viper, was trained by Hydra's top recruiter, the Kraken, and she outshone any other potential agents. Taking the name Madame Hydra, she gained control of the New York-based operations for Hydra, where she ended up facing off against none other than Captain America. After having her identity stolen and being sent to Limbo, she took the life of the original leader of the Serpent Squad, who was called Viper. She took his name and took control of the Serpent Squad, reorganizing the group and seeking out the Serpent Crown, almost allowing her to take control of the entire world. After failing there though, she hired the Silver Samurai as her bodyguard and fought on her own for a little while facing mutants and Avengers, specifically Captain America, Spider-Woman, and Wolverine. And even more before eventually returning to work with Hydra once again as one of their highest ranking members with a very high position inside the Japanese underworld at the same time. She is extremely skilled with strategy and management of a criminal organization with connections all across the globe. Number 3, the Owl. Leyland Owlsley, a self-made crime boss who initially made his fortune in the financial sector, earned the moniker the Owl of Wall Street due to his significant wealth. However, his descent into criminality began when he came under investigation for tax evasion and various corrupt business dealings. Remarkably, rather than shying away from the life of crime, he actually embraced it wholeheartedly, and we gotta give him that. Now, in a world populated by superheroes, every villain requires a unique edge of their own. Owlsley is not only an astute businessman, known for not making many mistakes, except for when he was caught and sent to prison, and his exceptional strategic planning, but also possesses a brilliant mind. His ingenuity reached new heights though when he developed a serum that granted him talons and the ability to fly. Assuming the alias the Owl, he became a formidable adversary of Daredevil, harboring ambitions to dominate the criminal underworld. His influence extended from New York to Chicago and even to San Francisco, establishing his criminal organization within the Maggia family. Number 2, Mr. Negative. The story of Martin Lee, Mr. Negative, is actually quite interesting. The man who would become Mr. Negative was a member of the Snakeheads in China after being pushed into a life of crime by the crime boss known as Silver Fang. He smuggled immigrants into the United States as a crew member of the Golden Mountain ship. When that ship crashed onto the New York City shores though, stole the identity of one of the deceased immigrants named Martin Lee, who was heading to America to join his wife. Eventually, as Martin Lee, he was captured by the Maggia crime family and was delivered to the chemist Simon Marshall. Now, Marshall was developing a new synthetic substance called D-Light for the Maggia and was testing it on runaway teens and illegal immigrants, often faced with fatal results. Only 3 victims, Tyrone Johnson, Tandy Bowen, and Martin Lee himself, survived and managed to escape. Thanks to D-Light and their unique biology, all three developed superpowers related to Dark Force and the Light Force. Tyrone and Tandy became the hero's Cloak and Dagger, and Martin Lee became Mr. Negative. The transformation created two distinct identities within Martin Lee: the kind-hearted Martin Lee persona and the Mr. Negative persona. The Mr. Negative side dedicated himself to becoming Chinatown's kingpin of crime, intending to erase the Maggia family for what it had done to him, while Martin Lee was a pillar of the community. And finally, in at number 1 today is Madame Masque. Giulietta Nefaria, working under her father, another crime lord named Count Lucino Nefaria, became the leader of the massive Maggia crime family, which I have mentioned like 10 times today. And in one of her first moments, she actually attempted to infiltrate Stark Industries by charming Jasper Sitwell. Only she actually ended up getting feelings for him and then got into an accident that disfigured her, which is when she got the golden mask that granted her the name of Madame Masque. She has remained a villain to Iron Man for a long time, playing a bit more of a hands-on part, although behind the scenes in Dark Reign and Secret Invasion, which is where she developed a relationship with the villain, the Hood. She remained a decent level threat for a long time, even fighting Moon Knight and Hawkeye, and there was also a point where she acquired a number of magical artifacts that gave her actual powers outside of the Maggia. Thanks to her less than ideal relationships with Midas, Jasper Sitwell, Tony Stark, and her own father, plus her childhood and facial disfigurement, it's made her an incredibly compelling character with depth that many other somewhat obscure villains can't really match. And there you have it. I'm Adam Andrews, this is Top 10 Nerd, and I'll catch you all on the flippy flop. Peace out.